Welcome everyone to Fall Maxi 2020. My name is Amy Steinbecker and I'm the Executive Administrator for the DMAW I am joined by our event coordinators. We have Courtney Lewis, who is President of the DMAW Board of Directors, and Leanne Doyle, who serves on the DMAW Board. Leanne also represents our event sponsor, PMG. So we began our virtual competition with presentation 1, which is our team from Shenandoah University. Before the team gets started, I would like to introduce our judges. We have 3 judges with us today: Stephanie Musser of Mindset Direct, Matthew Harkins of the Engage Group, and Kelly Tucker of CCAH. Judges, if you are all set, then we will let Shenandoah University get started.
All right, thank you, Amy. So yeah, as she said, my name is James McPhillips. I'm here with Kennedy, Steve, and Peyton, and we're from Shenandoah University. And so when we were given this assignment, we were actually super excited to be working with DAV. We have the benefit of having Steve, who is a veteran. And so we were really excited about it, and we're really excited to show you what we came up with.
So just a quick outline of what we're going to talk about today. We're going to start with our market analysis and then move into our marketing strategy and kind of show you what we've been creating as a marketing plan. And then we're going to move into the budget analysis and then just finish off with our conclusion.
So here's a quick snapshot of a few non-veteran, non-profit veteran charity stats and some of the larger firms within the industry. Some of the names you might have heard of: Fisher House, Thanks USA, USO, and IAVA.
And so the first thing that we had to do was some market research. We needed to know what was going on with the DAV, their competitors, and our target market. So we started with just plain old online research and looking at databases and researching there, but we decided to go a little bit of a step further and do a survey, which we'll talk about a little later on, but it really helped guide our decisions.
Our team created a SWOT analysis in order to identify DAV's weaknesses and some possible opportunities for increased growth. In our opinion, DAV's current marketing campaign is a little bit non-engaging, and they have a problem with lack of visibility and obviously with lapsed donors.
And so we knew our target market was the 9.5 million lapsed donors that the DAV has, but we wanted to break that down even further. So we decided to segment it by age, because that's kind of where we're seeing the biggest differences between the target markets. So we decided to go with donors 34 and under, and then donors 35 and up. Because there are the big discrepancies between the two in 2 specific categories, and the first being social media habits. So it's no surprise that the younger generations, they use more social media than the older generations. So Gen Z and millennials, they spend an average of 2 hours and 47 minutes on social media per day, as opposed to Gen X and baby boomers, they're spending an hour and a half. So it's kind of a big difference. And then you look at Instagram specifically, that first group, they're spending 71% of them use Instagram compared to just 37% of the other market. So we really saw social media as a big difference between the two. And we're going to use that to target them. And we'll talk about that later on. And the second part is donation habits. And so a lot of people think, well, older generations have more disposable income, so they probably donate more. But actually 84% of millennials, they give to charity, as opposed to 72% of Gen X and baby boomers. The difference here is that the millennials give a smaller average. So they give on average $481 a year across 3.3 organizations, as opposed to the older generation, they give on average $1,200 across 4.5 organizations. And so all of that information is from emarketer.com. And from there, we were able to kind of come up with personas that were able to guide our research.
As James mentioned, we created 2 personas to hone in on our target markets. We have the older generation. His name is Jack, somebody with an established career. They're financially comfortable, maybe affluent. over the age of 35, maybe 55 to 65, a few years before retirement, but later in their career arc. The kids are college age. They use tax deductions for charity, and giving back makes them feel good. Given their age, they may have a family member or a friend who served in the armed forces. Some of the challenges for Jack is the technology gap, and older patrons might not like digital advertising or may have issues with electronic donations. So we'd focus on direct mail and print advertising for that segment. And the other half, we have Sarah, who is younger than 35. We said she's a post 9/11 female veteran, no children, enjoys giving back to organizations that helped her get to where she's at. And some challenges for Sarah is convincing to donate. She may have a lower income stature due to being younger in her career. So we focus on using social media and email for outreach, and we'd like to really create an emotional connection with the younger generation.
And so once we had figured out those personas, we really used that to guide our marketing strategy. So next slide. And so we were able to come up with marketing objectives. And the first we have two overarching objectives, and that's to reconnect with lapsed donors and then increase their activity. But we wanted to put specific numbers to that. And so with the $100,000 budget, we wanted to be able to reach 250,000 people. And we wanted to receive $100,000 in donations in response to that campaign, or $100,000 in net revenue from the campaign.
And with our strategy, we kind of have two things that we're looking at. We're looking for ongoing support and then nurturing that relationship. We don't really want to just reach out to our lapsed donors one time and expect them to donate. We really want to keep that relationship going with them and encourage them to continue to keep the DAV in mind and to continue that relationship with them and continue to donate. And so we found some research from Campaign Monitor, which tells us the top two reasons why people donate. 52% of donors said a compelling reason, and then 36% said pictures and stories from someone the organization has helped. So those two combined connect with about 88% of donors. And with that information, we made our stories campaign. And what we want to do with our campaign is tell stories of veterans that the DAV has helped and really show people where their money is going. And the three things that this campaign is: it's emotional, it's humanized, and it leaves a lasting impression. So it's emotional. It really tugs on your heartstrings and makes you feel something and want to donate. And it's also humanized. It's putting a face to the money that you're donating. You're not into the wind. You can really see exactly who and where your money is helping. And then it also creates a lasting impression. So you're thinking of that story even after you made the donation and even after you've seen the ad. And our campaign strategies, we've chosen 3 of our main channels, which are going to be social media advertisement, email advertisement, and direct mail. And again, that Campaign Monitor research showed the top 3 ways people like to receive from their favorite nonprofits. 41.6% chose email, 32.4% said social media, and 21.5% chose mail. And we're really trying, again, to reach that entire demographic from younger to older, with a lot of our younger ads focusing through social media and email, and a lot of our older people focusing on our direct mail, just so we're making sure we're hitting the entire demographic and there's something that appeals to everyone. And again, as I mentioned, we don't just want this to be a one-time blast that we send out. We really keep to continue to nurture that relationship. So we have outreach and retention. Our outreach is that initial, when we're reaching out, asking them to consider to donate to the DAV. And then that retention is going to be keeping that relationship. So it's not just a one-time thing, but we're really allowing them to be involved in the organization, and they'll see where their money is going, and that'll inspire them to keep donating. And so a little timeline of what we plan to do. We're going to start by sending out our direct mail, and we want that to arrive in their mailboxes about the same time that we send that email. So they're constantly getting all these reminders of the DAV. And we're expecting them to make their first donation within 90 days after receiving the email and direct mail. And then directly after that donation is made, they're going to receive an automatic response thank you email. And then they'll also get another direct mail saying, thank you for your donation, but please continue to consider the DAV in your future endeavors. And throughout the entire timeline, we're looking to have our stories social media campaign on social media the entire time to just continue to remind the donors of the DAV and constantly keep them in mind.
Here you see 3 examples of our stories campaign that we created for our Facebook page. We're planning to post 2 to 4 times per day on this platform and really utilize the boost and advertisement feature on Facebook to target both our followers and non-followers, because there is a percentage of individuals of lapsed donors that are not following us on our platforms. We want to reach around 108,000 people through our social media platforms such as Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook altogether. So moving on to Twitter, we will see that, one second, we will see that you have another example of our stories campaign of Joseph, but we also wanted to integrate another type of template here. As you can see on the right, we didn't want to oversaturate our social medias with story posts back to back. We still want our viewers to be interested in what we're talking about. And like, if anything is oversaturated, then it's not going to be as effective. But Twitter has 145 million monetized daily active users. So we really wanted to utilize this platform because it is a major part of our marketing strategy. We plan to post 3 to 10 times per day on Twitter and utilize the polls as a way to increase engagement and spark more interest in our viewers. So next we will speak about Instagram. And as you can see, here is another example of our stories campaign. And this is one of Migdalia. She's a survivor of military sexual trauma. We really wanted to show our lapsed donors where their money is going to. And like Kennedy said, pulling at their heartstrings and showing them that their money really is going to individuals that need it. And it is making a difference. On this platform, we will post 3 to 5 times per day. And we found during our research that only 30% of nonprofits utilize Instagram as a way to build awareness and reach their potential donors. So we really want to stand out on this platform because that is a lower percentage. So we have a very good idea of how we can be successful on this platform and utilize it to the best of our ability. Moving on to email. We plan to reach around 70,000 people with our email. Like my other presenters in my group, we've talked about how email is such a large part of our marketing strategy. We have 2 different templates here. We have our more generic template on the left and then our stories campaign on the right. And we will integrate those 2 throughout the course of our campaign to make sure that we're not sending out the stories campaign too much to where it's not having the same effect on our viewers and our lapsed donors. So we found during research on Campaign Monitor that around 42% of individuals are more likely to like being sent emails versus other types of communication. So we really want to utilize that. And 20.5% of those individuals said that they were more likely to donate because of an email. So like anybody knows, email is a wide array of ages that use this platform. We have younger generation and older generation that utilize it. So we really do want to make the best of our email campaign as well. Moving on to direct mail. We see our postcard that we created with our stories campaign. We plan to send out a large amount of postcards for our campaign and trying to reach 161,000 people. We do have that 90-day time period where we really want to target our donors and lapsed donors because they are more likely to redonate in that 90-day time period. So we're really wanting to thank our individuals for what they're doing. So moving on.
The team created a small sample focus group utilizing Google Forms, and we asked respondents 12 questions regarding general awareness of DAV, asking them to rate our stories campaign and a likelihood to donate after seeing our material. On the right of the slide, you see some of the quotes that we found that we think that were very profound. Our Dave Riley post was rated 10 out of 10 on effectiveness by 50% of the respondents. 50% of the respondents also said they're likely or more likely to donate after seeing the stories campaign. And as another surprising number, 25% of respondents had never heard of the organization before. And here we have our budget analysis. On the left, you'll see our breakdown of prospects reached, totaling 340,000. And on the right is our cost breakdown. Our expected net revenue is $164,493. Both of these totals eclipse our goals that we shared with you earlier.
And I know we're just about out of time, but thank you so much for being here and for giving us this opportunity and letting us work on this. And we appreciate all your feedback and even the criticism. So thank you. Oh, you're muted, Amy.
Thank you. So yes, let's go ahead and move into our Q&A portion of the competition. And our judges will have up to 10 minutes to ask questions of the team. And we suggest that all judges and students show their video and unmute as appropriate. And judges, feel free to go ahead and get started with your questions.
Hi. First of all, thank you guys. This was a well organized and put together presentation. I appreciate you guys taking the time and effort. My question is just some clarification or some additional details. You spoke about the two different personas that you were targeting, and that's how you're doing your audience segmentation. Can you speak a little bit more to the contact strategy specific to those personas and the different messaging to target those personas, like call to action, personalization in emails, or the direct mail piece?
Sure, I can take that. So with the older generation, they respond better to direct mail, statistically speaking. So our method of contact with them would be direct mail postcards and direct mail advertising. Sorry, you want to take the rest of this, Kennedy, James?
Yeah. So as we mentioned, the younger generation is really a lot more active on social media. So a lot of those posts will be geared toward that younger persona, just because they understand how to donate more using that kind of platform. And then the mail, the in-house mail file will be directed more towards our older generation, just because that's how a lot of them prefer to receive it. The emails are kind of geared toward both of them, just because it's kind of a mix of our direct mail and our digital media. And that's a really good mix of the two of them. And both our social media, our direct mail and our mail will all have call to action, with the social media having the kind of donate now button that a lot of social media platforms have. And the email will also have a link that you can just click and go straight to the donation page. And our direct mail will have a little card that you can send back to the DAV that'll have, you can write down your information and just donate. So we're making it really easy for people to see the campaign and right away decide they want to donate, and then they just have that option to donate right away.
Great, thank you.
Sort of similar, an offshoot of that question a little bit, thinking about the personas and the segmentation. I totally get it, makes sense. You know, certain generations like to go certain angles, like to receive their information certain ways, like to give certain ways. Have you thought about looking into their past giving? You know, since these are lapse donors, ideally, you know, there'll be information on whether they gave offline, whether they gave through different digital methods. Have you thought about like trying to target that way to maximize your budget?
Yeah, and that's something, since we didn't actually have like a list of lapse donors to go off of, it was kind of tough to do, but something we did come across in our research was their way of giving. So I talked about their donation habits, where younger generations, they might give more often, or more of them give, but lower price points. And what we came across in our research is a lot of times people like packages, like a $25 a month donation package or something like that. So it's not just like up to them however much they give. So it would be nice to know what they've given in the past, so you could kind of cater that towards them. But that would be something we'd look at for like email. You might ask the younger ones to donate a smaller amount than the older ones, which would be much easier, if we had their past donating habits. But yeah, definitely that would have been great to use for sure.
And also to piggyback on James, that also goes into our follow-up plan as well with the 90-day period. We're also looking at when people do donate, how are we going to follow up with those individuals as well? Are we going to follow up with a postcard thank you or an email thank you or something like that to really drive home another donation in the future?
Great, thank you.
Good morning. Also, quick question on this, and as far as your target audiences are concerned, where did you come up with at what age to draw the line? And I'm asking because I guess because of my age and because of those that I'm surrounded by and what we use most often. So I'm trying to figure out how you came up with where to draw that line.
That's a good question. And I think drawing the line, because we said 35, I think drawing the line is a little tough. But we just wanted to do it generationally because a lot of like the research for those kind of habits, it's millennials and Gen Z versus baby boomers and Gen X. So yeah, that 35, it was kind of a ballpark for that because it is we were looking more generationally.
I would just be aware when you're generalizing though that it's probably worth a little more research as far as age-wise who uses what, because I would beg to differ that that age range is probably in the 50s that are using a lot of media as opposed to the other options.
Mhm.
Also, as far as the postcard is concerned, as your direct mail piece, since you were using that for the older group, how were you asking them to respond back to you if they're more of a mail-based, a direct mail type of grouping? How, as far as sending them a postcard, are you asking them to get back to you if you're not including, say, a BRE or a reply device or something like that? Are you sending them to a website when they're not necessarily the techie people? Or what were your plans for that?
With our direct mail, we're going to include a little call to action card that they can just send right back through mail, and they can fill with all of their information if they want to donate. So they're really, the way that you're receiving the information is the way that you can also send back your donation. And with the mail, you can just mail it back. If you're receiving it through email, you can click that link. And with social media, again, there's that call to action button. So we're really just gearing it towards however you prefer to receive the information is also the way that you can send out your donation.
Okay, so just to be clear, you're asking me to put my personal information on a card and mail it back?
Yes, it would be a safe way through mail though.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, just one more follow-up question. At the beginning of the presentation, you guys had obviously done your SWOT analysis. And you also spoke a little bit about the other organizations that are out there that are recognizable in the veterans marketplace, which we know is rather saturated. So could you speak a little bit to how your marketing strategy would make DAV stand out in a specific way in this crowded marketplace?
So yeah, as you mentioned, the industry is very crowded. And looking at other firms and their methods of marketing, that's how we decided to go with the Stories campaign to try to make a more of emotional connection instead of using methods more of like a demanding method, like donate now or something like that. So we want our donors to feel connected to who's receiving that money and where their money's going. So we try to create a lasting impression.
I think we have time for one more question if anyone has any other questions. If not, then it's time for us to wrap up, and I'd like to thank Shenandoah University for serving as presentation one today. I would also like to thank our judges for being here. Stephanie, Matthew, and Kelly, on behalf of the DMAW Board of Directors, thank you for serving as our judges. And Shenandoah University, you are free to go. Just remember that we will be sharing the results of the competition on Monday. And judges, you can remain in the meeting and turn off your video and audio so that you may score the first presentation. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Great. All right. Welcome everyone to our Fall MAXI 2020 competition. My name is Amy Steinbicker and I'm the Executive Administrator for the DMAWEF. And I'm joined by our event coordinators, Courtney Lewis, President of the DMAWEF Board of Directors, and Leanne Doyle, who is also on our Board of Directors. And Leanne also represents our event sponsor, which is PMG. We will begin with our presentation number 2, which is our team from Salisbury University. And before this team gets started, I would like to introduce our judges. We have 3 judges with us today: Stephanie Musser of Mindset Direct, Matthew Harkins of the Engage Group, and Kelly Tucker of CCAH. And judges, if you are all set, then we will let Salisbury University get started.
All right, awesome.
You may begin.
Good morning. Thank you all for your time today. We're from Salisbury University. My name is Teresa.
My name is Liz.
And my name's Helen.
Next slide, please. So today we're going to be presenting our marketing strategy for the organization Disabled American Veterans to re-engage their lapsed donors. Our campaign is titled 100 Thank Yous to highlight the DAV's 100th year anniversary and express appreciation to our donors. Our message is going to be consistent across email, direct mail, and social media platforms to reach our whole target audience. We're focused on re-engaging those lapsed donors, but also retaining them and holding their interest by showing them that they're really making a difference. And from our calculations, we found that our campaign will result in $787,700 in revenue for the DAV. Next slide, please. So here we have our SWOT analysis to show you all some research that we conducted on the organization in order to determine our best course of action. And we found that the strengths of the DAV are really rooted in the fact that this is their 100th year helping veterans. They're a long-term organization, and it's really great because they contribute 95% of their proceeds to the services that they offer for veterans, which is significant compared to their competitors. In addition, we found that their weaknesses really come from the lack of communication and expression of appreciation to their donors. However, this really gives us an opportunity to fix that and capitalize on targeting our donors and making sure that they feel like the organization is engaging with them in a positive way. Next slide, please. So our strategy, as I've mentioned before, is focusing on the idea of 100 thank yous. Our goal is to make the donor our hero and to really make sure that they know that they're appreciated and needed. We have a really strong direct mail piece that's a gift for past donors in order to help them feel that love, as well as the video that's incorporated throughout our whole campaign that will capture the 100 years of impact that the DAV has made and what they've been able to accomplish with the donors' help. So we also segmented our donors by the amount that they donate and their age in order to target them as efficiently as possible. You can see on the screen there that we have an infographic example of something that can be used on the donation landing page and throughout our campaign in order to show possible donors what they can do specifically and how their donation is contributing to certain causes. Next slide, please.
All right, so here's an overview of our team segmentation. We start out with 9.5 million lapsed donors, and then from there, we use recency and frequency as a basis of our segmentation to reduce that number down to 787,700 lapsed donors. So using the RFM segmentation model will help the DAV find their most valued lapsed donors within the past 5 years. And with all that being said, we want to recapture that 787,700 lapsed donors who have donated more than once in the past 5 years. And if the lapsed donors criteria is not met within that 5-year span, Then we would analyze the prior years in order to reach the target market of 787,700 lapsed donors. So our recency may vary depending on our RFM analysis. And then once this analysis is complete, we will further segment by using age segmentation, which helps with our communication strategy through each platform, which are direct mail, email, and social media. Next slide, please. So we based our segments off a statistic found by the Data and Marketing Association, which stated that consumers aged 45 to 54 years old are likely to respond to direct mail with an average response rate of 14.1%. So here's an overview of our platform segments. Direct mail will be sent to individuals who are 45 years older and up, which will reach an audience size of 26,700 lapsed donors. Our email piece will be sent to individuals between the ages 30 to 44, which is our largest audience at 731,000 lapsed donors. Lastly, social media will launch paid search ads to individuals ages 18 through 29, and this will have an audience size of 30,000 lapsed donors. Next slide, please.
Alrighty, so the big question of our whole campaign is, why do donors stop giving? And through our research, we were able to determine that 18% of people stop donating due to the lack of communication or poor service. 13% stop donating simply because they never received a thank you. And 6% of people stopped donating because they believed other causes were more worthy or deserving. Overall, that's 60% of lapsed donors. So in our campaign, we have designed a strategy, use of email marketing, social advertisements, and through an amazing direct mail piece, your listeners will come back. And so here is our direct mail piece. When building this campaign, we came up with this brilliant idea that would help steer away from the normal. We wanted to create something that would be fun and interactive to impress our donors and grab their attention. When the donor first receives this box, they'll notice that there is a printed ribbon on there. So it appears more as a gift. And I don't know about you guys, but I love gifts, so as do a lot of people. So it will definitely increase their chances of opening the gift. Now the design of this is what makes it super cool. Upon opening, once you take out the first frame, it'll act as a surprise box, so it'll kind of lay flat, and then it'll consist of 5 different panels. So in the inside, top panel, it'll contain like, thank you for your previous support, things like that. And then our right side panel will contain some statistics from our DAV 100-year video, which I will address in a few minutes. Left side panel will feature a veteran, one who needs your support. The bottom panel will contain our QR code, which is if you take out your mobile device and you scan it, it'll take you to the link of our 100 years DAV video, sorry. And then our center panel will be like our call to action, please donate. And then it'll just act as, we need your support, please help us, we could be nothing without you. In the inside, we have designed a COVID-19 care kit. So this will consist of a custom DAV mask and hand sanitizer. It'll also contain our donation letter, donation form, and then a previously stamped return envelope, just in case like the donor decides they want to donate that way, we can send that back out with no problems. And then, of course, as mentioned, on the bottom panel, it's going to contain our QR code. And then a little bit about our video and QR code. The QR code will act as like it's going to spark interest. So people will want to find out what is behind that thing. It'll gain access to our DAV 100 years video. As said, in our video, it's going to give us like a overview of what the DAV does, why they're important, why we need to keep pushing people to donate. It'll show that they pay for certain amount of surgeries for veterans. They provide rides to medical facilities. They support veterans in their battle with PTSD. The DAV also helps find employment for veterans, and it provides college scholarships. So it's a super important video.
So here we have our email campaign. Our first email that's right here is going out to lapsed donors between the ages of 30 and 44. And it has the subject, celebrating you, our hero for 100 years. So this has our consistent message of showing our appreciation for the donor and making sure that they know that they're appreciated. emphasizing that they help veterans together. And with their help, they've accomplished some of the things listed in the email below. The word choice itself is really appreciative and engaging to keep their attention and draw them into the video. It's the same one that's on the QR code from the direct mail piece that highlights what the DAV has done throughout their 100 years. Continuing to make them feel loved with their donation, making an impact yesterday, today, tomorrow, and all the time. And our call to action button with support veterans now, leading them to donate. And then the second email there is an example of what will be sent after a donation is made. So this goes for our lapsed donors once they donate from our calls to action, or any new donors from the existing landing page website immediately after they make the donation. We know from our research is really lack of communication and failing to engage enough with donors. But this email has a subject, thank you, like your donation matters, which is self-explanatory there. And again, has very appreciative and engaging word choice. This example in particular confirms the donation of $100, mentions if the donation was made in honor or memory of someone. And then what's new is that we include what service or cause the money is going to, like we listed in the infographic. And this is really gonna help the donors feel engaged and help draw them in and retain them, because they're seeing the actual impact that their money is making. Next slide, please. Now here's our email workflow. It shows our efforts at really retaining those donors and keeping them. So it starts with our donors, 100 thank yous, which hopefully get us a donation. And then from that donation, they'll be sent a second email matching the amount that they donated to a certain cause. And then continuing from there, because we're dedicated to staying communicating and showing them what they're doing matters. We'll have a follow-up email in a week or so with more ways to give more details. Now, if we don't get a donation the first ask, no worries. Second ask, same appreciative verbiage and details about how they've helped in the past and how we still need their help. So that'll hopefully lead to a donation, and then same deal as before, the thank you email matching the amount to a cause, and then they will also get the ways to give follow-up email after that as well. Next slide, please.
Alrighty, so here's our social advertisements. Our social advertisements are acting as a promotional tool, with the main point and idea that we kept in our heads was that we wanted our donors to receive the same consistent message on all platforms. So our social advertisements include all the same graphics, verbiage, and of course the DAV 100 years video, as is contained in our direct mail gift and in our emails. We wanted this to put emphasis on impacting our donors and making them feel appreciated. We also include our, as said, 100 years video, sorry. When using social media platforms, Facebook in particular is one that is super neat. They have some super cool promotional tools on there. Facebook Ads Manager gives you the opportunity to upload house lists. And based on those lists, you will use them to show our advertisements to our selected and targeted audience, which in this case would be 18 to 29 years old, going down to 30,000 lapsed donors.
So now that you've gotten a glimpse of our campaign, here are our numbers. With our budget of $100,000, we're able to accumulate $134,173.50 in revenue and a total ROI of 134.18%. If you look at the ROI calculations, we were able to cut the costs of lists because we will be using our house list from our segmentation model. We also anticipate a higher rate of response for our direct mail piece at 14.1% based on the statistic we found by the Data and Marketing Association, along with our package design and the fact that it's being delivered to the door rather than your mailbox. And even though these numbers are great, they can still be better, and this is how. Next slide, please. A study done by the Fundraising Effectiveness Project, FEP, found that 4% of lapsed donors on average come back. And you might be thinking, so what? Next slide, please. So with this statistic, we're able to calculate our campaign's optimistic ROI. So as for the calculation statement, if 4% of our targeted 787,700 lapsed donors re-engage, we can expect 31,508 people to make an average donation of $25 as a result of our campaign. And this will bring in $787,700 of revenue and an ROI of 787.75%. Next slide, please.
So thank you guys so much for taking the time to listen to our presentation today. We really feel like our marketing strategy takes the challenge of re-engaging lapsed donors, but it takes us even further, making sure that those donors come back and they don't leave again. We used our research and SWOT analysis to really understand the point of view of the donor and to find a way to change that mindset. With 100 thank yous and 100 years of impact that wouldn't be possible without their help, we make the donors feel appreciated and included in our efforts. Our message is consistent across all channels so that regardless of whether they see it first in direct mail, email, social media, they can go to the DAV website and say, oh, look, there's the 100 years that they were talking about. And not only is our campaign beneficial in engaging and retaining donors, but it is also profitable, innovative, and as we mentioned before, will bring a revenue of $787,700 for disabled American veterans. We hope to implement this strategy at the end of November into December while it's still 2020, and we'll kick off the holiday giving season. This is our strategy. This is our solution to really make the donor our heroes so that we can help our veteran heroes together. Again, thank you so much for your time. And now we're ready to move on to any questions that you might have.
Wonderful, thank you so much. And you are correct. Let's move to Q&A. Our judges will have up to 10 minutes to ask questions of the team. And we suggest that all judges and students show their video and unmute as appropriate. And judges, feel free to get started.
I'm gonna jump in real quick as a digitally minded person. The Engage group, we do all digital work. That mail package looked very cool and very exciting. And from my perspective, I have no idea what mail things cost. Does that really fit into the budget? Because that looked like a box I would love to receive.
So we
Yeah.
actually, Helen.
So it was in the ROI statement. If you refer to page 9 on the deliverables, you'll see that we did fit in. It'll be a total of $2,040 for all 26.7 thousand pieces, or yeah, 700 pieces. So well, we were able to budget it in because cutting that cost of the house list really helped us be able to budget that.
Good morning. I thought that was a wonderful presentation. I too, because I work in direct marketing, was like, how in the world, and direct mail, more importantly, how in the world are they going to mail that package and be able to stay within the confines of their budget? But again, it does look very good. My initial question, I think almost at the beginning of the presentation, was what happens to the rest of the lapsed donors? Are we going to do anything for them once we see that this portion that you selected out does well? Will we go back and try to bring in the others? You know, we had 9.5, but we're only going to reach less than 1 million.
Right, so we did take that into consideration. So obviously if we could reach everybody and send them all a gift or something like that, we would, and that's not really in the budget. So another thing, I think that that's what's so great about social media and the email campaigns and things like that, that it's really up to the DAV's discretion. That was just what we segmented out. But these emails and social media posts can go to a much larger audience as well, if that was like if they decided to do that, because we just wanted to send it to the groups that would probably be the most responsive to it, if that makes sense. But yeah, if we could send it to everybody, we would.
And I can add more onto that because of our segmentation. So we're gonna get that 700 lapsed donor from the RFM. So that's gonna weed out like the most valued lapsed donors by their recency, by like how often they donated before, how much they donated before, things like that.
Okay.
Hi, thank you guys. Excellent presentation. My question actually was speaking to segmentation and contact strategy. It looks like the age segmentation is what you're using to determine who receives what contact piece. Is there opportunity for you to hit a couple of different channels for the different age groups?
Yes, of course. So with our like direct mail piece and things like that, if they do end up making a donation and things of that sort, like they will also get that email. So they're still in that email workflow. And that's what I liked about the email workflow and all that, because it still combines it goes across any of the age ranges. Also with social media, it will be posted on the main pages. And so I feel like Instagram reaches maybe a younger audience, Facebook can reach a little bit older and things like that. So there really would be like that crisscross communication. And so that's why we want our message to be consistent, because even if they see it one place first and then they go somewhere else and they don't see it, they might be like confused. But then that way it's a consistent platform. And then even on the DAV website, if you go straight there, they talk about their 100 years and things like that.
Thanks.
Do any of the judges have any more questions? Or are you all good? Good. Okay. So then in that case, it's time for us to wrap up. And I'd like to thank Salisbury University for serving as presentation number 2 today. I'd also like to thank our judges again for being here with us, Stephanie, Matthew, and Kelly. On behalf of the DMAW Board of Directors, thank you so much for serving as our judges. Salisbury, you are free to go. Just remember that we will be sharing the results of the competition on Monday. And judges, you may remain in the meeting and turn off your video and audio so you may score the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Great
Thank
job.
you guys so much.
All right, welcome everyone to Fall Maxi 2020. My name is Amy Steinbicker and I am the Executive Administrator for the DMAW-EF. And I'm joined by our event coordinators, Courtney Lewis, who's president of the DMAW-EF Board of Directors, and Leanne Doyle, who also serves on the let me just try this again, the DMAW-EF Board of Directors. And Leanne also represents our event sponsor, which is PMG. So we are ready for our third presentation, which is our first team from American University. And before the team gets started, I would like to introduce our judges. We have 3 judges with us today: Stephanie Musser of Mindset Direct, Matthew Harkins of the Engage Group, and Kelly Tucker of CCAH. And I will go ahead and let American University get started. Welcome.
Awesome. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. I am Julissa Lopez, and I'll be talking about the multi-channel marketing campaign called Labs to Lasting. So for starters, I want to talk about how at the DAV, they're really trying to keep fulfilling the promises to the men and women who have served our country. But in order to do that, we want to have to take a deeper look into actually the DAV as an organization, and we focus our channels to regain more of our relapse donors. So I want to start with the SWOT analysis marketing approach. I mentioned here the basics of what I was able to analyze. So the strengths, the opportunities, the weaknesses, and the threats. However, I don't want to focus too much on this slide just because I want to focus more on the elements of the campaign. So for the strategy, I was able to leverage leverage the power of our lapsed donors through crowdsourced testimonials, direct mail, email marketing, and our social channels to generate organic and genuine connections with the donors. For our objectives, it would be regain 45% of our donors to donate again by next year, 5% increase of new donors in the next 7 months, and reach a goal of 3 million impressions across advertising channels. Our channels will be Instagram, email, direct mail, Facebook, and Twitter. So for our target audience personas, we have our current repeat donor, Michelle. She's age 45, location suburb. She interacts with email and mail campaigns, has family ties to military service, and has a disposable income. Now we have our lapsed donor, Zach, who is age 32, location urban, prefers convenient donations, has also a military background, and appreciates service to our country. So before I get started into the actual content of email marketing, I want to mention how it is important that we actually send out a feedback email survey, because right now in these COVID-19 pandemic, we have seen that many of the companies are really reaching out to donors and people through emails. So it's important that we don't actually create so much noise in their inbox. So in order for us to actually succeed with our campaign, I want to be able to send out a feedback email survey for us to find out why they stopped giving. It's a great way to get feedback from our lapsed donors without putting the pressure on them, and for them to contribute on the spot. And these feedback loops will also allow our donors voices to be heard. And it will be an excellent way for us, the nonprofit, to collect valuable information for later on email campaigns. So on to the fun stuff. So for the email content, I want to start with a newsletter. You will update and educate, raise awareness, provide resources, and even show any activities that are going on in the area. I also want to promote more of the Smile Amazon, that it would be a great opportunity for them to donate through there, which I will later on talk about in a further slide. Then we have email appeals, a call to donate. Focus on specific stories, so make sure that we evoke those emotional appeals. For example, in this email that I was able to come up with, I made sure that I mentioned Hannah's name, like, hi, Hannah, and then talk about a little story, a story that has been an impact here at the DAV. So like John and Mary have been married for 27 years, and how years later he was paralyzed and he would need the money for the rehabilitation program. In this case, we have a powerful case to support it, and it would have also a conscious summary of where those funds are going to. And instead of saying like, yes to donate, it's more of like, yes, I want to help. It's all really about keywords and using that strategy. And then that will all also tie into all of our socials. Then we have the thank you emails. Of course, it's very important that we show appreciation. That is super crucial for our donors and maintain a well relationship. In this case, I was able to come up with like, in the month of giving, we want to thank you, Frank. Make them feel special, make them feel known. And then again, personalize it, use their names. And in this case, it's also important that we show where their money is going to with some infographics that I will later tie into our social media campaign. And I also want to make sure that we know how long they've been donating. So like, we want to get in touch with you. Thank you for supporting us over the past 3 years. And also thank you videos are really in. So if someone from the DAV organization would really do a little video and mention their name, that would be very special because it's something very different. So fourth one, success story email. For in this case, it's important that we also share the success about the organization and how donors have helped us. It's important that we show a light also on some donors that want to be shed a light. For example, in this case, like a donor of the month. So Susie and Michael have been giving to the DAV for 5 years now. And we should ask them, like, why did you choose to give to the DAV? Like, why this organization? How much has this organization impacted you? And also success of like what we've done with the donations. In this case, I mentioned how like after 2 years of working on a fundraising campaign, they were able to address like that new vans for the medical facilities to take the veterans to the VA facility. And this will also be mentioned in the socials. So honor a significant day. So in this case, of course, we will do like Veterans Day, Memorial Day, Military Day, but I think it's also important that we focus on days that are not as known and celebrated. For example, Mother's Day, Father's Day, Grandparents' Day. Many of our parents and family members have also been in the military and have served. So it's important to put an emphasis on that, which I will also connect into the social media later. So for direct mail marketing, as we know, direct mail could be a little old-fashioned, but I think from experience, I have to know that direct mail does have a good success rate. In this case, we want to redirect our mail to a specific person, use their names, and have words like you and me, have it really personal again. Handwritten if possible. I know there's companies now that do that for you too. And it's also like there's companies who also like make it seem like it's handwritten, but it's actually like a machine. And again, separate house file with prospective mail groups. Very important that we focus on our relapse donors and later on focus on the prospective mail groups that we can later on receive. And then I wanted to show this little graph for us to point out how important direct mail is. Like in 2017, the USPS said that 74% of mail recipients read or scan direct mail in 2017. So since the whole campaign of Lapse to Lasting is really focusing like what they get in the email, they will receive in the direct mail, they will see in the social media, for it to be behind in their back of their minds. Because since we have a big target audience, it's important that not everyone receives information the same way. So that when the person receives a postcard, it would be completely different maybe to the person who receives the email, but they could keep seeing that continuity all throughout the campaign. So again, for the context, first one would be like, you've been in our minds type of postcard. This is more of like, we've missed you, but we haven't like forgotten about you. And instead of using the cliche word of like, we've missed you, we say like, you've been in our minds. And again, personalize it. So like, Robert, happy 1 year anniversary. Have it like be a celebration. And then Robert's gonna be like, why is it a 1 year anniversary? So when he flips the postcard, it's gonna be pretty much like, happy 1 year to your last donation. And that would remind him, oh, like, that's right. Like last year I was donating to the DAV. And then we want to implement the QR codes here, which would be to donate for that, like for them to take them straight to donation, for them to visit their social media, and for us to like get more information about the DAV. Again, how I mentioned, thank you letter is very important, but wording really is key. And just the way that you present a letter. So in this case, like, Frank James, you made our day. We simply could have not done it without you. Tell a story, again, where the funds are going to, and then give the exact call to action of how much they want to be donating through sending it back to us through mail or donating to through our QR code. And have a director or a CEO sign the letter. In this case, I put Mark Bergs, the DAV's Chief Executive Officer. And just make sure that we have it like a Hallmark movie, like short and sweet for them to actually realize the potential that they have for organization. So as I was doing my research, I wanted to bring up the fact that donating is not just more than money. They could also donate toys, clothes, bedding, housegood, kitchenware, cars. So I wanted to do like this veteran annual drive in the month of November, which I will later show in my timeline. In this case, I found out that DAV Minnesota actually does this. So I feel like this would be a good implementation for those donors who don't want to or don't have the ability to donate money. They could also donate things around their house, and it'd be a good way to also help this organization. So for our direct mail contact, again, a Christmas challenge that I will be showing you in the later slide, and a holiday postcard. Like I mentioned before in the email, it's important that yes, we show Christmas and Thanksgiving and all those days, but also like I mentioned, Mother's Day, Father's Day. In this case, I want to like give the incentive of like, it's National Giving Month. Carlos, like dear Carlos, together we are saving and changing the lives of these veterans. They could also donate through the QR code, but this would be a way of like guilt tripping them in a sense, like, okay, they're celebrating Christmas, giving out gifts, but it's also in these holidays that our veterans also need some help. In this case, I want to tie it into our Christmas match challenge. So for this, I was able to do, like, for example, Frank James, I am attaching $25 that will duplicate the impact for providing a $50 for the rehabilitation programs that will provide direct service to ill, injured, or wounded veterans. This Christmas, I encourage you to help our veterans have a wealthy, wholesome Christmas with their families. So it's 2 coupons in this case. So they decide, the donor decides if like if they want to donate the 25, which you could later see at the bottom one that it says like, yes, I want to duplicate my impact. And it'd be a great incentive for them to be like, you know, this is actually a good moment for us to give more money, and this would duplicate to this program for the veterans, and it also be an easy incentive for them to understand. For social media context, so we want to push infographics all over the place. How I said in the email, the first email, I think this would be a great moment for them to realize where their money is going towards, and not just like them donating. So pushing all this to Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Mention again the veteran annual drive. Like I said, whatever they see in their postcard, they'll see in socials, they'll see in the email, and all of this moving on forward. So I also, like I mentioned, the significant day. In this case, I put like the Thanksgiving, like guilt tripping them, play the guilt card in a way. And then again, show appreciation for our veteran moms. You know, like it's a perfect opportunity for us to honor them and bring blessings to them. And it would be a great way for them to be reminded like, yes, let me donate to our mothers and our fathers. So I wanted to promote Amazon Smile all throughout social media and email and marketing and the direct marketing, but pushing it for Cyber Monday. It's a different way to do this because I feel like most people are focusing on Cyber Mondays and all their sales, but if they tie in to the organization of Disabled American Veterans in Cyber Monday and put it connecting with Amazon, whatever they would buy, that 0.5% will be eligible to be donated with no extra fees, no extra costs. So this will be a great incentive for those people who actually do want to donate, and from their buys that day will help them. Again, I want to also promote a virtual event for donors to put in that they feel special and they feel known. So we have a Zoom-friendly event donor with special guest carry, and we'll have giveaways, interviews, and games and prizes. And then the donor of the month spotlight, like I mentioned before, and then just promote more on social, like the podcast, the 5K, and some even Instagram lives. So this is a timeline. Will be a campaign from August to December. We have the email, postcard, social, and then everything there that I just mentioned is here organized, just a little bit more cleaner. So for the budget, the fun part. So I wanted to be able to reach only 100,000 people for that to be our test market. And if we get a positive result from this, then if we get a positive return of investment, then we'll be able to reach our entire database. In this case, I was able to focus on email, which I was able to get the 255 times the 5 months that we're doing it. And then there's a 25% nonprofit price, which gives me the amount of $1,125. And then the postcard, moving on to all the way to the postage price, which is also a special price for the nonprofits, which our total budget would be $156,125. And if we do the math, for the example, for the return of investment, it would be a total, like if you get the response rate of 1%, it'd go again to just 100, 1-to-1 ratio. So it wouldn't be as much. But if you go more into the 1.5%, then you would see that there's going to be 150%, which would be a 50 return of investment, and it would be really working. So you can see that even from the minimum beginning, this would be a good way to just start from low and then keep moving forward. So in conclusion, with the Labs to Lasting campaign, we want to make sure that we don't regain our Labs donors for just another one-time donation. We want to be able to use these multi-channel campaigns and build more relationship with them for them to keep lasting. It is important that we keep fulfilling the promises and of the men and women who have served their country through the Labs to Lasting campaign, and we are just getting one step closer. Thank you so much.
Wonderful, thank you. So we're now ready to move into the Q&A portion of the competition, and our judges will have up to 10 minutes to ask questions of the team of one. We suggest that all judges and our student here show their video and unmute as appropriate. And judges, you may begin with your questions. So Kelly or Matthew or Stephanie, did you have any questions for our team member here?
Sure. I'm curious. I liked a lot of the ideas that came up in there. You know, they've got a good creative angle, which I always like to see. But I'm curious, like, if you had any specific sense of testing strategies coming in, because I know like something like in particular something like having donor of the month. I really like that idea, and it's something that I've tried to do in certain cases in the past. And the best plans that we have on paper sometimes fall apart, and we don't know until like we get out into the wild and get to testing. So do you think about any ways that you'd want to, either through email or social or anything like that, like do any testing of what you were putting forth?
For example, for donor of the month, it would be more of like what we're getting, just seeing those donors who keep continuing donating and sending out like, hey, do you want to participate in donor of the month? Like we've seen how many times you've donated, and we want to make a spotlight you for you to be known and named, for you to be on our social media, be in our email network, and that would be a way for them to be out there. And I feel like with that incentive, people are going to start seeing that, and they're going to start wondering, okay, like I want to be donor of the month next month or something like that. So I feel like that would be a great incentive first to like ask, like reach out to some people, and I feel like word of mouth is going to be really big in that case. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Thank you.
Hi. I had a question. Obviously, for time reasons, we didn't dwell a lot on the SWOT analysis, but I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about how that SWOT analysis informs your strategy.
Sure. So for the SWOT analysis, I will go back. So for the SWOT analysis, so I realized how the DAV has a tiny fundraising budget. I realized how 1% of the total expenses were 116. So I wanted to make sure that we don't really spend as much, like I mentioned, in the whole, like all the whole database. And that's why I wanted to start as 100,000 first. in which case I mentioned how the track record for the strength is that they're providing a lot of big benefits for the lives of the veterans. So I feel like that would be a great incentive to also tie into the infographics that I mentioned and making sure that the donors are receiving that information as well, because I feel like as someone who is donating money, they want to see where their money is going towards. And as opportunities, it would be a great appeal for them to just understand, so sorry, to understand that they're recruiting the donors and everyone wants to help veterans. So I feel like everything really ties into what I really wanted to make it a whole as the marketing campaign. And like a big threat was like lapsed donors might be hard to reach through traditional means, but that's why we have like as one of the lapsed donors personas, Zach, like he more of a community type of reach. So like through the social media and through even email marketing. But that's why I wanted to have like a combination of everything, and they'll be seeing everything all throughout the campaign.
Thank you.
Do we have any more questions? No? All right, well then, it's time for us to wrap up, and I would like to thank our First Team for American for serving as presentation 3 today. I'd also like to thank our judges for being here with us, Stephanie, Matthew, and Kelly. On behalf of the DMAW Board of Directors, thanks for serving as our judges. American, you're free to go, and just remember that we will be sharing the results via email on Monday, and judges can remain in the room. Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys. Have a great day.
Wonderful. Well, welcome everyone to Fall MAXI 2020. My name is Amy Steinbicker, and I am the Executive Administrator for the DMAW EF. And I am joined by our event coordinators. We have Courtney Lewis, who is the president of our foundation, and also Leanne Doyle, who is on the board of directors. Leanne also represents our event sponsor, which is PMG. And we're going to conclude our competition today with presentation number 4, which is our second team from American University. And before the team gets started, I would like to introduce our judges. We have 3 judges with us today: Stephanie Musser of Mindset Direct, Matthew Harkins of the Engage Group, and Kelly Tucker of CCAH. And we're ready for our second team from American University to get started. Welcome.
Great, thank you all for coming. We'd like to welcome you to our presentation of the Make More Happen marketing campaign that we've designed for the DAV organization. My name is Ryan Puri.
My name is Mary Dent.
My name is Justin Golub.
And I'm Natalie Hamlin. So to start off, this is DAV's mission statement. Just to highlight the main points, DAV is dedicated and focused on empowering veterans, providing better access to resources for vets, communicating with change makers, and educating the general public. We want to ensure that this mission statement is seen throughout our IMC campaign and is understood by our audiences, as this is what DAV is all about. The DAV's brand image focuses on supporting, empowering, educating, and largely emphasizes personalizing veterans to the public, telling their stories and how the DAV has helped them and their families. We want to keep this brand image, but also add a twist on it to re-engage with our audience of lapsed donors. In the past, direct mail has been DAV's largest source of revenue, making 38.4% of all of their support and revenue in 2019. We also researched the COVID-19 impact on nonprofits, and one survey concluded that 53.3% of these organizations saw a decline in individual donations due to COVID-19 this summer, and this can have really large effects on our revenue and budget for this campaign. So on this next slide, you can see the numbers from 2019 and the annual report. So in 2019, there were 1.9 million contributors who donated over $122.5 million. And of almost these 2 million people who did donate, only 263,000 of these people were new contributors. So this shows the importance and the need to reach out to these lapsed donors and to make sure that DAV keeps engaging with people so they don't become lapsed donors. And the average donation for direct mail, phone, direct response TV, and digital channels is $24, which just highlights the point that anyone and anything can make a difference. So next we did a SWOT analysis to highlight DAV's strengths and weaknesses. Just to read a few of these strengths, DAV has very effective outreach, support, and programs and fundraising, but the messaging can get really similar, so it's kind of hard to branch out from that. And in addition, DAV has various target audiences and a really big reach, which is good, but this can be difficult to narrow down these into a single campaign and to find specific messaging for these specific people. So for opportunities and threats, from our research, we found that DAV wants to grow their social and digital media channels. And there's also an emerging need for positive and encouraging messaging during COVID. So this is kind of a great way to target lapsed donors as well as get press and media coverage. But that being said, our research also showed that fewer people are donating due to COVID, so it's kind of a double-edged sword. And on the next slide, these are objectives based on our research. We focus them in 3 areas: direct mail, email, and social media. So for direct mail, the first objective is to reach 88,000 lapsed donors, which we'll talk about this a little bit later, but this comes from our testing and rollout. And we also plan to encourage 5% of receivers to visit QR codes and social media handles. For the email, reach 88,000 lapsed donors and encourage 5% of receivers to donate. And for social media, the main objective and goal for social media is to keep people engaged after they've received this direct mail and email. So we plan to increase total impressions of lapsed donors by 15% and increase posts by 10% to re-engage with our audience.
Yep, and for our campaign, there are kind of 3 messaging approaches that we want to take. So continuously throughout the year, we want to play up the emotional value that donating to the organization brings. Even if people don't have veterans in their lives, we want to ensure that they know that they can still benefit from donating. And we'll touch on this in just a moment. But the imaging that could accompany this messaging could be, for example, images of people helping disabled veterans, showing disabled veterans reuniting with their families, and other similar images that help with that emotional value that people can really relate to. And this is kind of really where the Make More Happen idea came from, which has the goal of donating so that disabled veterans not only can live their lives, but continue to thrive despite their injuries. Also, during holidays, we want to further play up the emotional value by emphasizing the fact that not all families get to be together because some veterans struggle with travel due to being in long-term care facilities and other such facilities. So some imaging that could go along with this might be families surprising veterans in these care centers to showcase kind of the happiness of reuniting families and displaying that donations could go to helping these care for these people. Last, around key dates such as Memorial Day and Veterans Day that are very patriotic and focus on veterans, we want to showcase the real need that these veterans have for donations and the care that comes with it. So for example, we found that less than $1 is currently being spent on rehabilitation for disabled veterans, which comes straight from the Department of Veteran Affairs. Key stats like this are going to help us convey our message and gather more donations from past donors. And we'll get more examples of this in the next slide. So we found that 60% of surveyed donors prefer to hear from individuals in addition to receiving personalized messages of appreciation. So we really want to tap into the DAV network of employees, volunteers, and members to help increase donations by providing these personalized messages and stories. Also, 65% of surveyed donors want to know how their money is being utilized within the organization. So in our messaging, we want to feature specific veterans and their needs and how donating will help them. We also know that donors like seeing progress reports for the money that's being raised and the goals that are being met. So the personalized messaging mentioned earlier, in addition to our idea of providing these progress reports on veterans' recovery progress and their ongoing successes, will help us not only re-engage these lapsed donors, but also keep them coming back to monitor and help these veterans achieve their goals. So these images here are some samples of what our imaging might look like, where donors can really see specifically where their money is going. And then because of the assistance that their donation has provided, we can display the ongoing successes that these veterans are having.
So going into the strategies and timeline of this campaign, as Ryan mentioned, we have a lot of continuous messaging going throughout the year, but we really divide some strategies throughout the year. So for January and February, we want to first reach out to those lapsed donors and ask them to update their communications preferences, because research shows that people just start to get frustrated with the amount of emails they're receiving. So we want to make sure that the content that we're sending to them really matters to them. And then we want to also send a re-engagement mailer to lapsed donors, targeting them and putting that in their mailbox right at the beginning of the year to begin their thinking for the rest of the year. And we also want to have a survey on why donors stopped donating. So this could be for any number of reasons, but this way we know who to continue to reach out for and who to re-engage and how we can better engage them. Then in March and April, we want to segment these lapsed donors. So since DAV has 9 million lapsed donors, we want to really figure out who to target and how to best target them. And so we'll categorize donors based on the frequency and the amount of their past donations. So we'll be targeting people that once gave a lot to DAV, either monetarily or throughout time continuously, rather than reaching out to somebody who donated once or twice. And then in May, for Military Appreciation Month, we want to send out another mailer having to do with both Memorial Day and Military Appreciation Month as an almost midway point for the year to engage people. In July and August, we want to analyze our re-engagement efforts to see what's working, what's not working to move forward for the rest of the year. And then in November, for the month of giving, we really want to take advantage of things like Giving Tuesday and marketing around Veterans Day to increase the donations. And then for December, our end of year push will be highlighting things like the holiday messaging that Ryan mentioned, and then also it being the last chance to make a tax-deductible donation. For our email marketing, I am so sorry, my kitten is playing. But so for email marketing, for our frequency, we want to email donors within a year of their last donations to make sure that we're engaging them before they become lapsed donors to keep them in the loop and keep them connected to DAV. And then we also want to offer weekly, monthly, and quarterly email options, as well as different content such as newsletters, general updates, or messaging for major events like Memorial Day and Veterans Day. And then for specifically engaging the lapsed donors, we want to make sure that they really feel appreciated for their past donations. And as Ryan mentioned, that personalization of emails is so important for donors, and including data such as when they last donated, what their money went to in DAV, and how they were able to help veterans. So for the email content, we have an example of an engagement email from the perspective of a veteran. And as Ryan mentioned, it's really important that they're coming from these people and not just the organization at large. Nearly 60% of surveyed donors prefer this. And then we want to have a veteran stories campaign. So really explain what this money is going to, how it's helping veterans, and how it's making their lives even better into the future. Rather than just getting help right now, they're getting help forever. And then our direct mail, as Natalie mentioned earlier in the presentation, it is such a huge part of DAV's fundraising efforts. And so we want to include DAV, but work on how to connect it to the digital world. So we want to be sending these mailers 2 to 4 times a year, and we would have different content for both active and lapsed donors to really segment that group. And then we would be sending those re-engagement mailers at the beginning of the year and then throughout the rest of the year to figure out how we can get them back into DAV and focusing on special holidays. Finally, we will be using QR codes and simple social media handles, encouraging people to use these codes and handles to go online, learn more about DAV, see what has changed since they last visited us, and then hopefully get them to donate. Here is an example of a mailer that we would be sending to re-engage a donor, Nancy. So in this situation, Nancy would be somebody who has expressed interest in women's veteran issues. And so for the mailer, we're personalizing it with her name, and then we're explaining what she can do to help women's veterans, an issue that she really cares about, because when issues are targeted to our donors, they're more likely to donate and re-engage for the rest of their time with DAV. And as you can see, the small QR code in the bottom would activate her to go to the donation page.
Okay, so the last channel of distribution we're going to be looking at is social media. This is going to be using 2 different platforms, Instagram and Facebook. For Instagram, we're going to be focusing on making 2 different kinds of posts. The first post will be highlighting veterans who have benefited from DAV support. This is similar to the email marketing that was just talked about by Mary. This will have a veteran who has received support along with a caption describing who they are and what they've done, and then a call to action and a donation link. The next kind of post will be showcasing the people who have been helped, the amount that has been helped, and how people will benefit from redonating. We believe that while it's difficult to specifically target lapsed donors with Instagram, we believe that these 2 kinds of posts will reach out to them, even if it's not specifically targeting them. Next, looking at Facebook, this is going to be a slightly different approach. We're going to be looking at ads and retargeting through a custom audience. This will be using a list of emails of those who haven't donated within the last 2 years, and we'll send them specifically targeted ads to them to get them to redonate or inspire them to redonate. We're also going to be looking at promoting timeline events on Facebook and promoting brand related news and other industry or current events that are taking place. So finally, we're going to be looking at the budget. There's going to be two different phases for this campaign. The testing phase, which will have 25,000 pieces of mail, and then the rollout phase, which will have 250,000. You can see the distribution of the budget listed here, totaling around 70,000, and the ROI, which we're estimating to be about 170, can be further broken down on the next slide. So looking at this slide, we have a total breakdown of our budget, looking at the test budget and the rollout budget. This is a big estimate, and it can change quite a bit depending on how much we're distributing for each channel. As you can see, we're currently choosing about 8,000 for direct mail and email, 2,000 for social media, and 7,000 for a banner ad. These can change. The amount we're getting can change. These are just rough estimates to get us to our 170 return on investment. So we believe that the Make More Happen campaign will be very beneficial, and we will thank you for listening and let us know if you have any questions.
Wonderful, thank you so much. So let's go ahead and move to the Q&A portion of the competition. And our judges will have up to 10 minutes to ask questions of the team. And we suggest that all judges and students show their video and then unmute as appropriate. And judges, feel free to get started and ask your questions.
Hi, Matthew here. Thank you for the presentation. That was really nice. I really like that you did have the strong focus on getting those lapsed donors back into the giving cycle. Naturally, the follow-on question that I have in a lot of my day-to-day is, once we get those lapsed donors back in, how do we prevent them from relapsing, and falling back out? So, and if you covered it and I missed it, my apologies. But do you have were there any follow-on strategies for keeping those donors who are now back, into the donor file, keeping them on there?
So a few tactics we've found is that when people are donating and also volunteering and engaging them to volunteer, they're more likely to stay with the organization longer. So once we are re-engaging them through the donation cycle, we would also be reaching out to them for the volunteer cycle, really connecting them with veterans and what the organization is doing to make them really feel the impact and keep that strong personal connection throughout years in the organization.
Yeah, and if I could add on to that, we kind of talked about having a strong focus on, specific veteran stories. So, when people receive these pieces of content, they'll be able to see specific veterans and the struggles that they've been through, and then, where they're trying to go post injury. So for whatever reason, people can, latch onto these stories and continue to monitor these like successes and what has happened after their donation has been received and how their donation has actually helped that person achieve their success.
Cool, thank you.
Hi, excuse me. Thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. My question was specific to, obviously, we realize that the veterans marketplace is rather inundated these days. So I'd like you to speak a little bit about how the content you're serving up is going to help DAV stand out in a crowded marketplace.
So I can start with that. So what part of this is, as Ryan mentioned, we really want that personal connection for donors. And so even though DAV is such a huge organization, it has local branches all across the United States. So people can really get involved on a local level and see the impact they're having. Additionally, it's not just randomly donating money. There are different services like getting rides to doctor's appointments, canvassing on Capitol Hill for making policy changes. And so DAV can really stand out to people as a multifaceted organization, but also not something too huge that they can't understand, that they can still see their local chapter and connect with those people.
Thank you.
Hi, I really thought you all had a very good presentation, and I'm just wondering, are you breaking down, or had you thought about breaking down by age group? I may have missed it, so I apologize in advance if I did. How you're going to contact the different levels, meaning via direct mail or Facebook, Instagram type medium?
Yeah, that's something that we definitely, unfortunately, I don't think had the most data about specific age breakdowns, but as we would, be going through our test phase with our test mailers, our test posts and things like that, we would be able to kind of understand the age groups and demographics that are really engaging most with our content. And then from there, we would be able to further segment, as Mary mentioned early on in the year, after running out of test phase, we'd be able to identify those segments and then be able to further target them and segment them separately.
Great, thank you. I think the engagement that you all have, the different levels and the different things, I mean, the whole year plan, I thought was just excellent.
Thank you. To add on to the age groups, we saw that with so many veterans of different ages and generations, we can reach out to different donors of different generations. And I think our different platforms kind of lend to different generations. So for the social media marketing and the content we're putting out there, that would probably be targeted towards a younger audience, seeing that older generations are not going to be checking their Instagram every day, whereas a millennial veteran or veteran connected person would be, whereas the direct mail might be reaching some of those older generations, but also door to door, still very connected to anybody.
Thank you.
I also have one more thing with that. We don't specifically know what DAV has like on their back end with like if they have like a database of their donors. If they have something like that, they could have like everyone who's ever donated and then like their demographics. That could make it easier to target specific audiences or markets. That's just not something that like we know about if they have.
Very good, thank you.
And if we don't have any more questions from our judges, then it's time for us to wrap up our fall competition. I'd like to thank the final team from American University for serving as presentation for today. Since this is our last team, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our judges for being here all morning to witness and evaluate our fall MAXI competition. Stephanie, Matthew, and Kelly, on behalf of the DMAW Board of Directors, thank you so much for serving as our judges today. This concludes our competition. American University, you are free to go, and remember that we'll be sharing the results on Monday via email. And judges, please just hang on for a few moments.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.